today reading from Canto 3, Chapter 6, text number 19. Sorry for you people who thought that Srimad Bhagavatam was going to class today. That means didn't. Medram tasya vinirvinam Svadishtam cha vaveshat Reta samsina yena sav Anandam pratipadyate Medram tasya vinirvinam Svadhishyam cha upadhisat Medram, gentle, tasya, of the gigantic form, vinirvinam, being separated, svadhishyam, own position, ka, Brahma, the original living creature. Upadhisha, enter. Retasya amasinam, with the part of the semen. Yena, by which our soul, the living entity, Anandam, sex pleasure, pratipadyate, experiences. Translation, so there's quite a few verses that don't have purpose, so I'll just read through the English. When the genitals of the gigantic forms separately became manifest, then Prajapati, the original living creature, entered into them with his partial semen, and thus the living entities can enjoy sex pleasure. The evacuation channels separately became manifest, and the director named Mitra entered into it with partial organs of evacuation. Thus the living entities are able to pass stool and urine. Thereafter, when the hands of the gigantic forms separately became manifest, Indra, the ruler of the heavenly planets, entered into them, and thus the living entity is able to transact business for his livelihood. Thereafter, the legs of the gigantic forms separately became manifest, and the demigod known as Vishnu, not the personality of Godhead, entered with partial movement. This helps the living entity move to his destination. When the intelligence of the gigantic form separately became manifest, Brahma, the Lord of the Vedas, entered into it with partial power of understanding. And thus, an object of understanding is experienced by the living entities. After that, the heart of the gigantic form separately manifested itself, and into it entered the moon demigod with partial mental activity. Thus the living entity can conduct his mental speculations. Thereafter the materialistic ego of the gigantic form separately manifested itself, and into it entered Rudra, the controller of false ego, with his own partial activities, by which the living entities transacts his objective actions. Parallel to this one. The false ego of materialistic identity is controlled by the demigod Rudra, an incarnation of Lord Shiva. Rudra is an incarnation of the Supreme Lord who controls the mode of ignorance within the material nature. The activities of the false ego are based on the objective of the body and mind. Most persons conducted by the false ego are controlled by Lord Shiva. When one reaches a finer version of ignorance, he falsely thinks of himself as the Supreme Lord. That egoistic conviction of the conditioned soul is the last snare of illusory energy which controls the entire material world. So we're hearing here in this part of Srimad Bhagavatam, it seems a little over the top of our heads, and it's definitely over the top of my head, but I have to try and say something, so I'll give it a shot. So this is how the process of creation takes place, and you'll see there's a few words that in these verses I just read, they come up quite regularly. Like separately manifests itself is one, and the other is partial. There's whatever the demigod is bringing to that particular part of the body, it's only has partial potency. So I think that's it's an interesting thing that as the body of this universal form is gradually manifesting, these demigods are in control of these particular parts of the body. And we understand from the Vedas that there's around 33 million demigods. I'm not sure if all of them have a particular part that they're controlling within the body, but these specific ones that I mentioned here in the Bhagavatam are the ones that I can't read anyway. And because the demigods are only jivas themselves, they can only have partial potency of Krishna. So in that way, what they bring, although it's much more potent than we, as the conditioned souls, can manifest, still it's nothing compared to what Krishna can manifest. And these last couple of chapters have been elucidating this potency of Krishna, and starting from how the pradhan is produced, and then by the glance and the entering of time factor and the modes of nature, these are all separated energies of Krishna, and they begin to agitate the pradhan, which becomes the Mahatattva. And from there, these other transformations start to take place, and to understand the magnitude of those undertakings is totally above what we are capable of understanding. But here we are, we're trying. And then this conversation between Maitreya and Vidura, that it's kind of put into as simple as it can be put into. And even in certain aspects, when Sukadeva Goswami is speaking to Parishit Maharaj on especially the creation topics, he says, I'll explain it as far as my realization goes. So it's not an easy thing to get your head around. In the purport, Prabhupada mentions a couple of things. He mentions like Lord Shiva and Rudra. And I listened to something a little bit last night, how there's different times when Rudra comes to perform different activities within the material world. So we know that there's two kind of distinct aspects to creation. So the first one is where Krishna is getting everything ready. So and this is part of this. He's setting everything up. So then the universe is kind of, the shell is assembled, but there's nothing in it. So then he will enter again as Govardhana Vishnu, and then from his navel we know that Lord Brahma is born on top of that lotus, and then from him the universe is filled with different living entities. So there's two aspects to the creation. The first is where Krishna gives all the ingredients, and I heard in this talk that this devotee was giving, he said it's like when he used the analogy of a manufacturing plant for a car, something like that. He said you've got all the machinery there, you've got your people in place, but there hasn't been anything made yet. So the universe is kind of at this point, we've got universal form is taking shape, and the demigods are moving into those particular parts of the body, and then Lord Brahma will take birth a little further down, and then from here all the living entities get their bodies. So the spirit souls who are within the body of Mahavishnu, they come out, and then Lord Brahma is in charge of giving them the particular bodies that they're going to inhabit. So after Lord Brahma, he goes through his bewilderment there on top of the lotus, and he hears the words tapa. So he does his austerities, and then Lord Krishna reveals through the heart the Vedic wisdom, and then from there he's able to go about his secondary creation activities. But he doesn't really get up to that good of a start. Like he, the first attempt at populating the world, the universe, is the 4 Kumaris. So there is 4 little sages, but they weren't interested in following their father's instructions. So they said, no, we're not going to get entangled in all this stuff. We're going to stay little boys, and we're just going to be brahmacharis our whole life. So Lord Brahma's like, okay, what can I do? So Narada Muni is the next expansion. And again, he's not so much interested in creating progeny to populate the world. So again, he refuses his father's order. So Lord Brahma becomes a little angry at this point, and it's said that from between his eyes, this form of Rudra is manifested, this form of Lord Shiva. And this it's said that he's a small boy, and he's a blue and red in color, and he's crying. He's really crying a lot, and because of this crying, he gets his name Rudra. He's asking, what is my name? What is my name? And Lord Brahma gives him the name Rudra. And then he later on will expand himself into 11 Rudras, and then maybe just leave it at the 11. There's more, but there's enough. So this form of Lord Shiva as Rudra plays pivotal roles in creation. Once Rudra began to do his progeny, it also didn't work out so well for Lord Brahma because Lord Shiva is in charge of the mode of ignorance. So the beings that he created were kind of the ones you see in like the Harry Potter movies, like where you go to goblins and all kinds of strange creatures. And then they went on a bit of a rampage all over the place. So then Lord Brahma had to calm the situation down and then had to get Lord Shiva in his form of Rudra to be in control of these beings and so there could be not so much chaos. So that's basically 3 attempts by Lord Brahma to get things moving, but they didn't work out so well so far. So the next person was the Prajapatis. And the main one of those was Daksha. Daksha means expert, so he was very good at producing offspring, progeny, and he it's all over the place a bit. There was one of the Rudras, one of these 11 Rudras, they had daughters. And Daksha, I think I'm getting mixed up with it, but it's a whole thing. But anyway, the story is that Daksha had 10,000 sons to one of these demigoddesses from Lord Shiva, and he was thinking, okay, now we're going to get some movement going. We're going to get some way here with this population of the world. But then Narada Muni comes along, and he convinces them that no, this is not the best thing for you. You got to renounce the world. You got to go to the forest and become brahmacharis. And so he convinced them, 10,000 of Daksha's sons, to become brahmacharis. So they went up to the forest, and then Daksha wasn't so happy about that. But anyway, he thought, okay, I'll try again. So he had another 1,000 sons to a different wife. And he's thinking, okay, this time it's going to happen this time. And again, Narada Muni comes. Narada Muni comes to these 1,000 sons again. Says the similar kind of speech, and again he convinces them to become brahmacharis and not take up their father's word. So Daksha's he's getting real mad now, and he curses Narada Muni that you will never be able to stay in one place for as long as it takes to milk a cow. So, and we know that Narada Muni he's always on the move. He's never in one place because of this curse by Daksha. But finally, they got things moving, and the different species and the different types of human beings, and everything started to become manifest through the progeny of these Prajapatis. And it's all explained here in the Bhagavatam, different family lineages also. But it's interesting that although there was a plan The plan doesn't always go according to plan. But just because of the determination of Lord Brahma and these other personalities, finally they were able to have what we have now in this world. And everything is running so smoothly and like clockwork, and just to naively think that it's all going on just by chance, that takes a lot of faith when you really think about what complexities there are in this world. And I think as time goes on, the scientists themselves are realizing more and more that, before they had all this sophisticated technology to be able to see cells and go down to the atoms and be able to split atoms and all this kind of thing, they kind of naively thought that the world was very simple. But as they started to dig deeper and deeper, they realized it's actually very complex. And just to think that by a process of evolution that so many amazing and intricate and complex things can eventuate from that, it's quite a big ask to believe. And science itself is really starting to turn a corner, although it won't happen overnight, but it's happening. My spiritual master says we need to needs to be like a synthesis of religion and science, because science, like Sankhya philosophy, is basically what the scientists are doing. They're breaking everything down to its small pieces and trying to see, okay, and categorize everything, put this there, put that over there. But they don't necessarily bring in the spiritual aspect. It's just the prakriti, but not the spiritual energy. So with the synergy of religion and philosophy and the analytical study of science, we can actually get a full understanding of what is out there. Even like with the instruments the scientists have, or as sophisticated as they are, they can really only see, or be generous, like 15% of what's out there. I went on a NASA site one time and they were talking about this particular point, and they said, we're lucky if we can see 5% of what is out there with the instruments that they have. So to be able to make a conclusive argument about the reality of creation or the reality of the universe with 5% of the understanding 5%, not even understanding that 5%, 95% they don't even know what it is or how it works or anything. So scientists and religion, we can work together, and it's meant to work together, but just because of circumstances, science has really become a prominent factor because they can give a lot of conclusive evidence on many things. And also another thing is that we misidentify science as applied science. So applied science is more like, these kind of things, cameras and things that make our lives easy, all the technology we have, TVs, and so we think this is science, medical advancements and operations and medicines and stuff like that. Although there's been such a huge advancement in that, when it comes to the fundamental understanding of the universe and creation, they've gone nowhere, they've actually gone backwards, because they understand less now than they did, or apparently understood 100 years ago, something like that. So there's a misidentification of the two aspects of science. So we think science is, it's like Tesla cars and whatever, all that kind of stuff. And that's part of science. But science is meant to understand and be interested in the ultimate truth, the ultimate reality, and metaphysical aspects of the world as well. But yeah, that's not really their kettle of fish. They just like to play with the atoms and things like molecules. Okay, I think that's enough. I'll shut up now. Does anyone have any questions, comments, corrections?
We have this little always microphone and microphone stand. Thank you so much for the class, Prabhu. Just you making a point about Daksha cursing Narada Muni, because Narada Muni convinced the 10,000 sons to become renunciates. Prabhupada also jokingly said that the parents of his disciples cursed him. He too can't stay in a place more than 3 days. And we can see Prabhupada travelled constantly. Yeah, Prabhupada jokingly said that.
Hare Krishna. So, in terms of creation of Lord Brahma creating all the living entities, I don't know if all living entities includes like the animals and stuff, because you also have it stated that Lord Vishnu impregnates material nature with just a glance, and all living entities are born out of the glance of Lord Vishnu. So how does that all how does that work? How do those, because it seems almost like you got one person creating another person creating, like, yeah, what's your understanding of that?
Like I mentioned, there's two aspects to the creation. So Lord Vishnu, he impregnates the living entities of souls, making with the subtle bodies that they have. And then it's Lord Brahma who makes all the bodies, basically. Makes all the vehicles for the souls to go back into.
So like the plants,
yeah, all the tree
everything like that. Yeah. I don't know if it really goes into detail about him like creating all the plants and animals. Does it? No. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Wonderful. Just mention about 5% of the materialist scientists know or experience. Do you mean that 5% is spot on? Because I understand is you mentioned that you're using instruments and things like that, but as we know that everything which is derived from the defects, that is also defective. So that 5% could be a defect of knowledge also.
Totally. Yeah. And it's like with any when you have like some kind of a dogma or some kind of a theory, and you're trying to fit the evidence to fit into that theory, then that's a cheating propensity, because science is obviously guilty of that. Even religion back in the day also has definitely been guilty of those kind of things also. So, yeah, how much they really know?
So, like in 200 years since Darwin's time, when they sort of, it was the first time the theory of evolution sort of appeared, Although we know even back with the Greeks and in India, there was philosophies of voidism and materialism that existed. But Darwin was the first to sort of give that so-called scientific basis to it. Yeah? So in the last 200 years of it, as they've investigated more and more, as you said, they realise it's just got more and more complicated. It's vastly more complicated. Now they understand a little bit more about the complication. Like in Darwin's time, they thought like a cell, for example, had this stuff called protoplasm in it, which was sort of just like goo. Now we realise it's just teeming with complication. And the scientists are starting to sort of talk about it. We only find that sort of, when things are with that sort of intelligence, or that sort of control or design, always seems to come from an intelligence. And as you said, they're starting to talk about that, which is interesting. Although a lot of, as you said, there's also the cheating propensity that the older scientists seem like, if someone mentions that, like stuff you're not allowed to talk about, you can still lose your position apparently.
Oh yeah, it's probably, it's just a joke for most scientists now, so I'm very put there.
And yet if you go to a local school, they're still teaching that Darwin stuff. The textbooks are like practically a century out of date, it seems.
Yeah, I heard, I forget who was speaking, I think it might have been, he's in the BI, both of them. He was mentioning this thing where he said basically you got to get once the old guys go out and the new guys come in, then they can be changed. But while they're still there, it's like nothing. They just keep rolling out the same stuff. Although they also are aware of it's not correct, but it's just like, we've been teaching this to the kids for 30 years, 40 years. So, we're not going to change how we do things, but once they're gone, he said there's a chance of bringing in some deeper, newer understandings.
A lot of it seems to stem from the desire to explain stuff. You don't have to admit there could be a supreme control. As an atheist, I can be a controller like anyone else, so to speak. But we start to realise our level of control is so infinitesimal.
Yeah. It takes a bit of humility, but yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it?
And it's scary to look at that we don't have control.
Yeah.
And to not know who's in control. It's very scary.
Just to say that 5 and 95% comes from the fact that they think that 95% is dark matter and dark energy. Because when they look out of space and they see distortion of the light, they say, oh, there's something there, we don't know what it is because it's dark, we cannot observe it. But we know it's there because there's some gravity. So the estimation is that 5% is actually what they can see with optics and other even radio waves, and 95% just dark. They know it's there, there's some distortion, some gravity. So 95% is. But they'll get there, don't worry. Very close. Even our solar system, we had 3 states of matter. We had gas, liquid, and solid. But even the solar system is made mainly of plasma, which is what's the sun made of, which is actually ionized gas. So you don't have it on Earth, but it's actually most of the solar system is made of something which is not existence on Earth. So very limited possibility to actually investigate.
Yeah.
So-called reality.
Thank you.
He's the smartest
What could they possibly discover, like materially speaking, that's not already stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam?
No,
What's there to be discovered, really? It's already there. It's only just to be created. That's all they're doing, is just creating an illusion. That's all they do, is just create. They're not discovering anything. It's not already there.
You find that, like Ayurveda or something, been saying something for thousands of years, but then the scientists come up with a new breakthrough in, nutrition or something. And it's like, duh, they've been saying that for thousands of years. But they make out like it's something that they've come up with, or uncovered or whatever. But it's been there forever. Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki.